guys, and welcome to Odds Serie A Match Day 21. We have Derby della Madonnina, Danny, but both Milan teams are in crisis, especially the Rossoneri.
Yes, Edu. Last year the Derby della Madonnina decided the Scudetto with Milan winning it from behind and then took the advantage on Inter. And this time is a sadder derby, if you like. Is a derby for the second place, third place. The reason for Milan might not even go to the Champions League as it stands.
Exactly. We will analyze a bit later what is going on with Milan conceding 5 at home in the last game against Sassuolo. But first, let's analyze all the games we have in this 21st match day with Daniele Fisichella, with you guys. Remember, leave your comments, tell us your tips, and don't forget, press the like and subscribe. And the first game we have on Saturday, actually, is Cremonese Lecce for the relegation battle, with Cremonese still with no victories. Remember, only 8 points, 8 draws. The last game was a defeat against Inter, 2-1 at home. Whereas for Lecce also, Danny, another defeat at home, very unexpected. This one against Salernitana. Similar odds for both Cremonese and Lecce to win.
This is difficult to predict because both teams lately have conceded a lot of chances, a lot of goals as well. It's a bit strange for Lecce, a team capable of beating the top teams, then losing to Salernitana. Cremonese only 1 point since the restart. Lecce only 5 points. Now they got less points than Salernitana. I think they're going to be saved, but the recent form has not been graced. Cremonese still no wins so far, same as Elche in Spain. They're definitely going to go down. The good news with Ballardini is that they become a little bit more solid, also because they play with 5 at the back. So in the last few games, they've not been trashed, and they played against Napoli, they played against Inter. It is true that Inter had a lot of chances, but Cremonese held their own. So in the end, the 2-1 defeat was a fair result. Joint worst defense at home for Cremonese, still 17 goals conceded, and they're going to play a midweek game against Roma tonight at the Olimpico, which I think is going to be an unnecessary distraction for them in the pursuit for salvation. Lecce only 1 win in the last 6 away, and 5 out of the last 6 away games have been under 2.5 goals. They are rather cautious when they travel. I remember the 0-0 against Spezia, where they had good chances. Look, I think Lecce hardly gonna lose this one. I think, if anything, is gonna be a cagey one, maybe a low-scoring game. So I have to be cautious as well, considering, again, there is a midweek game for Cremonese. And go for a Lecce as an handicap 0, which doubles your stake. So in that case, if there is a draw, you simply get your money back.
Good enough. Lecce, they are not bad when they travel. 9 points, 2 victories, 3 draws. So it's not a bad team at all when they are traveling. 12 in the away standings. Next game, Danny, is Roma Empoli. You mentioned Roma playing in Coppa Italia against Cremonese. We were all shocked, seeing how Mourinho took a picture after the game against Napoli. They were close to get points from the Diego Armando Maradona, but they lost. They are out of the Champions League spots, and recently at home they beat Fiore and Bologna without conceding, with a clean sheet. But be careful, because this Empoli is in great form, 6 undefeated games in Serie A. And recently, for instance, they beat Inter away or drew with Lazio.
Mourinho took pride in the defeat against Napoli, because it's true that Roma deserved a point, and perhaps even more. They played really well, especially in the second half. They play much better than what they play against Milan, for example, when they drew 2-2. But this time, they were not lucky. The 2 goals for Napoli were 2 wonder strikes, both in the top corner. So, when it's your year, it's definitely your year. And, Osimhen and Simeone produced 2 great goals. But Roma were good in the second half with the introduction of El Shaarawy, who scored a good goal. 10 points in the last 5 for Roma. Since Dybala is back on the side, they're really much more creative. So they are in good form. The question with Roma is that, how deep is their team? How deep is the squad? Now without Zaniolo, who's going to stay at Rome, but he's out of the team. Spinazzola injured. Abraham might be out for this one as well. It's a short squad, and you see in the second half, Spalletti could make positive, good changes with Raspadori, with Simeone, with Ndombele. Mourinho couldn't do the same. The good news is that Wijnaldum is back in training, so we might see him again soon. Home form for Roma has to improve anyway. They only scored 10 goals so far at the Olimpico. They are unbeaten in the last 5 games, always been under 2.5 goals. So Roma tend to score early at home and then shut down shop. But Empoli, revelation of this new year of 2023, 2 wins and 5 draws away this season, deserved to win against Inter, against Torino. They took the 2-0 lead, and as often happened to Empoli, they're a little bit naive. They not very good at defending. They really can't barricade themselves without conceding, despite having a great goalkeeper. In the end, Torino could have actually won the game, but they're unbeaten in the last 3 away and always scored. A few weeks ago, they went here and did 2-2 against Lazio. Empoli is not a team that is set up to defend. Look, despite all the Roma absentees, I think there could be goal in these ones. There could be more than 4.5 goals, but again, I'm going to take a cautious approach. Also, because Roma plays midweek against Cremonese, I'm going to go over 1 goal in the first half, 196. First half ends 1-0 each way, you get your money back. More than 1-0, obviously, you win. 196, 0-0, you lose.
Strange what is going on with Zaniolo, from being one of the stars in Italian football, and after the injuries, now he's going to stay in Roma after all the rumors in the winter transfer window. Next game also for the Champions League spots, we have Sassuolo Atalanta. Atalanta now in the 4th spot, having a very good run in Serie A. They beat Sampdoria last 5 games, 3 victories, 2 draws. They played midweek out of Coppa Italia, Dani, and this Sassuolo was the biggest surprise, I would say, even in Europe in the weekend, scoring 5 against Milan with top players that we've forgotten about them, no? De Frel, Fratesi, Berardi, all back in the score sheet.
Best game of the season of Sassuolo. They were so quick off the mark, pressed Milan high, hurt them on the counter. They were unstoppable for at least 60 minutes. A little bit of luck for Sassuolo as well, because Milan got two goals ruled out by VAR for very marginal calls. But, Sassuolo showed all the good qualities they had that somehow we thought they were forgotten this season. 7 points above Verona, so they're a little bit more calm, if you like. And, they're showing Berardi is back in form. Since he came back, he's already the 3rd goal. 𝐿'Orientè and his pace tormented Calabria. They sold Traoré in the final days of the transfer market to Bournemouth, but they got Bayrami from Empoli, so they've been busy again in the transfer market. No wins in 3 at home, and 5 of the last 7 games at home have been both to score. So with Sassuolo, often is a high-scoring game, often is both to score. It is a team that does concede chances, but going forward with a 4-3-3, they can hurt a lot of teams, especially I think they could hurt Atalanta, who is a team that now is playing with less cautious and is pushing the line very high. Is a team that, again, is going to attack. They were a little bit disappointing against Inter in Coppa Italia. I don't remember any big save from Onana. Gasperini made a few changes, didn't start Lookman and Højlund, started with Zapata. Didn't create much Atalanta for a team that scored so much going to Milan and ending with a 1-0 defeat. Yeah, it's not great, but they're unbeaten in Serie A. The form in Serie A has been excellent. They got the 3rd best attack, 21 points collected away from home. So you could expect them starting with the starting 11, with the starters to get to bounce back and to get a good game and to get a few goals here. 5 of the last 6 away games for Atalanta have been over 2.5 goals and both to score. So normally that's what happens. They do score over 2.5 goals. So I'm going to go for exactly the same. Both to scores and over 2.5 goals, 268. So, if it's a 2-1 win each way, you win 268.
We saw in the last 2 games, for instance, 2-1 between these 2 teams, and the last 9 games between Sassuolo and Atalanta saw both teams to score, as you were saying. So only both teams to score pays very little, 1.6, 1.5. So you have to spice it up, as Danny was saying, with an over for this game. Next one, on Sunday morning, we have Spezia Napoli. Very difficult to bet against Napoli. As you said, Danny, they are winning even without wanting to win. Great goals scored by Osimhen and Simeone. And now they travel to Spezia. It's the team that are close to the relegation, 5 points away from the bottom 3. Still, Napoli to win. No, I guess it's impossible not to trust them.
It's their year. It's clearly their year. They got plus 13 points on Inter. Milan lost points at the weekend. Juventus lost points at the weekend. Lazio lost points at the weekend. Yeah, obviously, it's there to lose. But, again, as you mentioned, even without being fantastic, great against Roma, when it's your year and, Osimhen produces that great goal, top corner, Simeone as well. I mean, things cannot go wrong, at least in the league. Everyone is fit. There are no injuries. The turnover is working. Yeah, the only bump in the road so far has been knocked out by Cremonese in the Coppa Italia. But as I mentioned before, it's good to get that defeat out of the system in the Coppa Italia and then focus on the big prize, which is the Scudetto and, of course, the Champions League to come. Let's see if they're going to start rotating players, because that game against Eintracht Frankfurt out of a sudden has a very, very big importance. Napoli have a chance to go as far as they can in the Champions League, considering the one between Liverpool and Real Madrid are going to knocked out, one between Bayern Munich and PSG are going to be knocked out. So, Napoli, out of a sudden, they could be potential finalist for the Champions League. Look, Napoli, second best away defense, 7 conceded, the best away team in Serie A. Last 2 away wins have been 2-0. They're going to travel to Spezia full of confidence, fully rested, without midweek game. And Spezia are without strikers. Gas is suspended. Zola is still injured. There are still a few injuries in midfield with Bastoni against Bologna. They didn't create much. Last 2 games lost without scoring for Spezia. You need to trust Napoli to win in a low-scoring game, I would say. Maybe Napoli win and under 4.5 goals or even under 3.5 goals. It could be an option. I like Napoli as an handicap minus 1.25, 193, which means if Napoli wins by only 1 goal, you lose half your stake. But if Napoli wins by 2 goals margin, 2-0, for example, you win 193.
Last season was a 3-0 for Napoli in the Stadio Lo Pico, and I think you are completely right, Danny. Why not? This is the year of Napoli also in Europe after that great group stage that they did. Perhaps they could reach even the semifinals or the finals, as you are saying. Well, 2 games on Sunday in the middle of the table. Torino Udinese, 8th Torino, drew against Empoli. Udinese 7th, still not great, but they grabbed a point against Verona. They beat some away in the last game. Far from Udine, what do you expect here?
Well, this is a difficult one because Torino tonight, they play probably the most important game of the season, which is the quarterfinals of the Coppa Italia in Firenze against Fiorentina. And I think this is going to leave some scars, of course, for Torino, but Torino have been great. 16 points in the last 10 games. So, this is a very good average point that will see them finishing in a European position. And they have strengthened the team in the transfer market. One of the few Italian teams that actually spent some money. They got 𝐜𝐵𝐻 from Verona, Gravillon from the French league. And against Empoli, they went behind, but then a great reaction, hit the post twice. Miranchuk hit the post at the end. They could actually won it. So they are a fit team. They're a team that is finding more of their rhythm, more of their aggressivity with 𝐬𝐿. They don't score a lot of goals at home. 8 of 9 home games so far this season have been under 2.5 goals, but no long ago they beat Milan 2-1. Also, Udinese got a new player in the transfer market, and which is 𝐿𝐭𝐴 from, again, the League One side, Marseille, and this is because Deulofeu might be out for a while. And without Deulofeu, without the Spaniard, Udinese really struggled to create clear-cut chances. Only 4 points in the last 5 for Udinese, with only 4 goals scored. With Verona, maybe they were a little bit unlucky the way Verona scored. Was an own goal, a ball that looped from 25 meters from a header from 𝐵ECAO, and then Udinese had a lot of chances, but again, they can't convert them. They're really missing something out there. Decent tally away from home, though, for Udinese. They got 15 points, 1 more point than Juventus. So they are not an easy team to face when they travel, but consider also that they started the season really, really well, and now they're slowing down a bit. I think in the first half, Udinese might have the upper hand because I mentioned the midway game for Torino is going to be so important. It might go to extra time as well. See how it goes. See how Fiorentina Torino goes anyway before deciding to put a bet on this one. I'm going to go for Udinese Asian handicap 0 in the first half, which pays 230. So if he ends like a draw, no problem, you get your money back. If Udinese wins the first half by scoring early, you get 230.
All right. Well, probably a similar game we are going to see in the Artemio Franchi, Fiorentina-Bologna. You mentioned this midweek game between Fiorentina and Torino. Fiorentina not getting good results in Serie A lately. Well, the last one was a good draw against Lazio, of course, but only one victory in the last 6 games, whereas for Bologna, the opposite. They are getting points lately, 7 points out of the last 9, perhaps. These very good odds, favorable odds for Fiorentina, they are really favorite, 1.8. Danny, there is a chance of getting money if we go for Bologna.
Yeah, I don't see Fiorentina that favorite in this game, considering they also play midweek as Torino. They play each other. Good reaction against Lazio for sure in the second half after going behind, and they could have won it in the end. Milenkovic hit the post, hit the bar right at the end. But they are very inconsistent. The form dips down. Sometimes it's because maybe Italiano makes far too many changes. But there are players, you look at Barak, you look at �𝐿𝐭𝐚𝐲, you look at Cabral, that they are not really consistent so far. And the Fiorentina defense is always susceptible to mistakes and to conceding the odd silly goals. 5 points in the last 5 since the Serie A restarted after the break. So it's not a great tally, very unpredictable, mid-table at home. Last season at home, they were much better. They conceded in 8 out of 10 home games so far. And they play a Bologna side that in the last 10 games, so basically since Thiago Motta is in charge, they are 4th in the table, 19 points in the last 10 games. So is an average point that will see them in the Champions League, scoring 4 out of the last 5 away games, 7 points in the last 5. And they've been really good so far recently, even without Marko Arnautovic, because they found in Orsolini, almost like a new player, score again against Spezia, and they were compact, professional, a very good display. The issue with Bologna is when they travel, they do tend to concede a few goals. 21 goals conceded away from home, 3rd worst defense. I think it's going to be an entertaining one. I think it's going to be a both-to-score game. Rarely Fiorentina doesn't score at home, and I think Bologna are going to really put a fight here. Both to score, 2-2.
All right, and on Sunday we have the Derby de la Madonnina. I said at the beginning of the video that the Milan teams are in crisis, but I'm talking about the Rossoneri. Of course, only one victory since the break, getting 5 against Sassuolo, but not only this. Of course, they conceded 12 goals in the last 3 games, and for Inter, Danny, the only problem was the defeat at home against Empoli in the last home game in San Siro, but we saw recently a clash in the Super Cup between Inter and Milan, and was very easy for Inter. Do you expect a similar one?
I think if Inter imposes the rhythm and it presses high as they did in the Super Cup, I think Milan will struggle initially because they really suffered against teams that are pressing, that are playing a high rhythm. At the moment, Milan doesn't look a very fit team. Can Inter do it again? I think they could, because against Atalanta, they started the game well in Coppa Italia and they were really on the front foot. They didn't create an awful lot of chances, but enough to justify the 1-0 win. And, Inter, after all, with the points they have, if it wasn't for Napoli doing such a great job, they would be, at least in any other league in the world, they probably be in contention for the title. But Napoli has been so fantastic, and Inter, yes, have lost already 6 games. So it's a combination of both things. But, in this month, in the month of January, Inter have beaten Napoli 1-0, Milan 3-0, and Atalanta 1-0. So it's 3-0 against top teams for a team that previously struggled to beat top teams. And I think... Now, the fact that, for example, they reached the 4th consecutive Coppa Italia semi-final, it tells you that they have raised the bar quite a lot in the last 3-4 years. They are a team more capable of facing the crunch games, the cup ties, the games when it's all or nothing. So they have improved the levels. The players are much more focused, are much more concentrated than what they used to be. So in a low-scoring game, Inter normally prevails, they are able to find the chances and they are able to defend. Now, the few question marks for Inter is whether Skriniar is going to be back. He was promised to go to the Paris Saint-Germain. He didn't go. He's been rested midweek. So let's say with a kind of mindset he plays, although Darmian has been phenomenal recently. Small signs of improvement from Lukaku midweek. Be able more to link up play. The main man still remains Lautaro with 11 goals. Once again in double figures. Now, Milan. 14 goals conceded since in the last 5, the worst defense alongside Salernitana. Sassuolo could have had 5 or 6. They were a bit unlucky because they got a few goals disallowed, but they really couldn't cope with the runs from midfield from Sassuolo. Now the question is, will they revert to a more defensive formation, maybe a 4-3-3 with Krunic in the middle, with Bennacer and Tonali, and sacrificing Brahim Diaz? Probably that's the way to do it. Otherwise, they might suffer again, as they did in the Super Cup when Inter were so able to switch the play and getting runners into the box. Mid-table, really, Milan in the last 10 games, only 15 points conceded. And yes, I mean, they got a problem in defense. They think they cannot play with 3 at the back. They're not set up for that. So they need to really play with 4-3-3, be a little bit tighter. But if you look at the likes of Teo Hernandez, the likes of Calabria, the same Bennacer, 𝐿𝐴𝐻 as well, their form has been really bad recently. Difficult to predict because in Italy we always say the derby, the team that is not favorite usually prevails and win, and we've seen it happen many, many times. With Inter and Milan, in the last few games, you know, there've been 3 both to score, 3 both to score no. There've been overs, there've been unders as well. If you look at last year Coppa Italia, it's very, very difficult to predict this one. Inter are favorites. I think if we can see a similar pattern, perhaps like the ones in the previous games and in the Super Cup and also the Cup game the Inter played at the midweek, you could go for an Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Inter in the first half, which pays 220, which means if Inter wins the first half, you win 220. If they draw the first half, you lose half your stake. If Milan wins the first half, then you've lost your stake.
Okay, I would go for Inter, to be honest, in Milan's poor form with Calabria, for instance, or Tatarusanu being very poor. Tell me, guys, your tips, of course, and your suggestions for this Inter-Milan derby in the north of Italy on Sunday evening. Still, Danny, 3 more games in Serie A. 2 on Monday. We have Verona Lazio, with Verona trying to get out of the relegation zone, 5 points away from salvation, but at least they are getting points lately. And Lazio playing Coppa Italia against Juve and trying to fight also for the Champions League spots. Won't be easy for Lazio, I guess, this one.
No, I don't think, because both teams are very healthy. Also, Verona is in a good form. 8 points in the last 5. Only 3 goals conceded for Verona lately. They are 5 points behind Spezia, so they need to start winning, really. But they have improved and they become much more aggressive, tough to beat, you know, resemble the old Verona that we used to say. I don't think they should be so far behind Spezia, really. 3 wins and 7 defeats at home for Verona. This is the only team that so far this season hasn't drawn a game at home alongside Inter. Lazio, as I expected, they were tired in the second half against Fiorentina because the fixtures were so unfair. They played on Sunday, having played the previous game on a Tuesday evening against Milan. So after a 4-0 win against Milan, against Fiorentina, yeah, I mean, the second half, they took the lead. The second half really couldn't get out of the half very much, although they still show a few good signs. Immobile back from injury, had decent chances. Anderson seems in good form. They lost 2 out of the last 3 away from home, Lazio, also including that defeat at Lecce when they were 1-0 up. I think this is going to be difficult for them, and I like the double chance here. 1x, 186. There are 2 results out of 3. The draw could be the most likely one. 1x, 186.
Okay, surprise in your opinion in the Bentegodi. Also on Monday we have Monza Sampdoria. I guess Monza players are very happy, especially if Berlusconi is accomplishing what he promised, because they were able to beat Juve.
He has in his history with his promises, he's not always been the most truthful. I mean, especially in his career as a politician. But let's leave it there.
Like every single politician, I guess we cannot. They cannot give their
everything. Exactly.
Exactly. But Monza, they are doing a great season. No defeats in the last 6 Serie A games. If you haven't watched, by the way, the second goal scored by Mota is a beauty, especially the way Carlos Augusto assisted. Also, the goalkeeper, Dani Di Gregorio, was great. In the second half, everything is very positive for Monza. Everything is very negative for Sampdoria. 4 consecutive defeats now since they beat away Sassuolo.
Monza are playing a great football. I mean, against Juventus, they dominated the first half, suffered in the second half, but the win was totally deserved. They are unbeaten since the restart of the league, 9 points in 5, scoring the last 7. You mentioned Carlos Augusto, but also 𝐵urrea. It's been a great revelation. The 2 wing-backs have been the best players of Monza. Spalladino has found the system to make them play and to get the best out of the midfield, which is very talented with Pessina, Rovella. Up front, you got the likes of Caprari, Petagna. These are all experienced players. We knew Monza were going to be good this season. They only had to find the right way to play and the right man at the helm, Palladino, who used to manage the youth team. And since he's come on, they've always scored in the home games. So I could expect them to take the game on to Sampdoria, be aggressive. We know Monza sometimes leaves a little bit of gaps at the back. Sometimes they overplay, but they are a good team to watch. Sampdoria, 5th consecutive defeat, 5th game sent without scoring. Only scored 2 against Sassuolo in the new year. They are 9 points behind Spezia. Things start to look a little bit tragic against Atalanta. They had a few chances at the beginning, but then really there was not much. Second worst defense, 34 goals conceded for Sampdoria, and the worst attack of Serie A, only 8 goals. This is the team that has lost more games than anybody in Serie A. 15 games. At least Cremonese managed to get 8 draws. Sampdoria, they seem to lose all the time, sometimes in unlucky circumstances, maybe against Empoli, against Udinese. Recently, they didn't deserve to lose. Reverse fixture was 3-0 for Sampdoria Marassi. I'm expecting a few goals here as well. Maybe Sampdoria could score 1. If Sampdoria score 1, it's definitely an over 2.5 goals, but I like the over 2.25 goals, 191. So if it's only 2 goals, you lose half your stake.
Okay, Sampdoria going to Serie B, at least Genoa. They are in promotion spots. Right now they are 2nd in Serie B. And for Tuesday, I don't know why this game is going to be played on Tuesday. We have Salernitana Juventus. Perhaps, Dani, we see a sorpaso in the standings. Actually, if Salernitana beat Juve, they will be above the Juventini, because the results for Juventus lately are very bad. Remember, apart from what is happening outside the pitch, but defeat against Monza, thrashed by Napoli. They conceded 3 also against Atalanta. And Salernitana, after a really bad streak, finally they got a victory against Lecce. Salernitana Juve on Tuesday. Remember, this is not it's Champions League time, but it's Serie A.
Strange fixtures. 11 goals conceded for Juventus in the last 4. Everyone was talking about how good the defense was with the 9 clean sheets. Well, as soon as the opposition started to take in the chances properly, hopefully Juventus returned to the mean. They're not terrible, but I think with the back 3 of Alexandro, Danilo, and Bremer, they're always going to concede goals. And it was just by pure luck that they kept the clean sheet and by few good saves from Szczesny. The reaction was only in the second half against Monza. They would have deserved a goal, by the way, but you know they look a little bit lost. I understand it's very difficult for Juventus playing with a minus 15 points deduction and potentially with more points to be deducted soon. And Allegri, after the game, talked about achieving salvation. That's the real objective for Juventus, which might sound strange. They are 10 points on Verona, plus Verona minus 6 points from Udinese, who are in the 7th place. But at the moment, yes, the way Juventus have been playing lately, and I know they obviously got the firepower there, but they seem a team that lack a little bit of cohesion. We're going to see more chances for the young players. Now that also McKennie is going to Leeds, we're going to see Fagioli, Miretti, and 𝐜𝐵 playing more and more. And maybe Pogba, finally. He was on the bench against Monza. Maybe will be given a few minutes by Allegri. They need an injection of stamina, of courage. They need almost to reinvent themselves, Juventus. Otherwise, their season might just be completely anonymous, and they still have got something to play for. But I don't see them really being able to keep many clean sheets at the moment. They need to try and push more for the wins. Salernitana also lost a little bit of their defensive solidity. They conceded 14 in the last 5, so that's the worst defense alongside Milan. In the previous 5, they only conceded 8 goals. So again, the 8-2 defeats at Bergamo, it's really leaves the mark in the statistics, conceding 7 out of the last 8 at home. But they did manage to win a Lecce 2-1 in lucky circumstances. But they were quick off the mark, and with the likes of Budelaidia, Villegna, Piontek, it is a team that, again, I think they have strengthened a lot this season. The forward positions, not as much the defense. I'm expecting a few goals. The reverse fixture was 2-2. Salernitana went 2-0 up, then you went to 2-2. Juventus were robbed by a massive VAR referee mistake. They should have won 3-2 the game, by the way. Both to score here, 2-10.
Indeed. Well, Juve, they still have at least the Europa League against Nantes,
yes.
Coppa Italia. So there are many things, of course, to achieve in this very strange season. For Juventus, also kicked out, as you remember, from the Champions League by Benfica and PSG. Well, Danny, this match day starting on Saturday, finishing on Tuesday. Which one is your safe bet?
Napoli, Asian handicap -1, 167.
Okay, and your ACCA?
Sassuolo Atalanta over 2.5 goals, Bologna Asian handicap +1, Monza Sampdoria over 1.5 goals, Juventus Asian handicap 0. Total odds 461.
Thank you, Danny. Grazie. Thanks everyone
Grazie.
for watching. Remember just to press the like and subscribe. See you next week. Bye.
See you soon. Bye bye.